welcome back to our podcast, the Healing for the Heart podcast, people just like us. Today we've got Vikki and Donna with us. We're doing a series with Vikki and Donna at the moment in terms of some of the community development work that we do here in Healing for the Heart. About a year ago now, so probably last May, wasn't it? Last May we got a small tender from the NHS across the city of Glasgow to look at establishing bereavement groups. But these bereavement groups were for a very particular demographic. So these bereavement groups were to do with support for folks who are affected by death through suicide, alcohol or drugs. And so we took the tender on, and Donna and Vikki have been working in those groups and working at developing those groups. We have been blown away by some of the stuff that's happened in those groups. We've been blown away by the impact that they've had. Mm-hmm. And so we've actually swallowed those into as part of our core services now and continuing to run them as Healing for the Heart across the city. I know that there are plans in terms of development for them, but we thought it would be really good to just pause today and have a think about what we've learned over the last year, have a think about some of the things that have happened that have been inspirational for us over the last year, and also have a think about some of the things that have been hard over the last year and how we've worked through that and how we've dealt with that, because it's not something that we've done before as an organisation. It certainly wasn't something that either Vikki or Donna had done before. So why don't you tell us just a bit about the Compassionate Conversations group, kind of how it evolved, how it's got to where you are just now in terms of the group, and tell us a wee bit about your involvement with it, what's happened with that. So I don't know which of you wants to pitch in first.
So as you said, it was a small tender from the Health Partnership to start with, so we took that over from them. And Donna and I were not really sure what we were doing, so we felt our way. We've felt our way to an extent. We noticed very quickly that stigma was one of the biggest things. Yeah. Donna pointed out to me really early on, terms like committing suicide. It sounds like committing a crime. And that was one of the real main issues that the people attending the group had. They really felt that they didn't have a safe space to speak about this stuff. And very quickly they were telling us that they really valued the space. And that's really all we were doing, was holding space. Mm-hmm. So we came into it not quite sure. It started off being a bit of a check-in about the way people, where they were in the process, how they were feeling. Some of these people had been bereaved very, very recently. It was very, very raw. And quite quickly, with Donna's experience in other groups and community development, we really realised that we weren't sure what support people had when they were leaving. And so we began to split the group into two sections, each group. So we still had the feelings check-in, and people were telling us where they were at. And I mean, that was powerful. That was literally people reading us out messages from a loved one, showing us pictures of their loved one, telling us their plans for a loved one's graveside. It was really, really raw stuff. Mm-hmm. But in the second half of the group, we began to just want to ground people a little bit, just want to make sure they were all right for leaving. And we began to do all sorts of different things, Mm-hmm. Bit of mindfulness, a little bit of meditation, using the community resiliency model that we'd been learning anyway, through Healing for the Heart, doing a bit of grounding, bringing in some of the storytelling stuff. Tell us a nice story about your loved one. Just allowing, not trying to move people forward, allowing them to move at their own pace.
But also, I suppose, to see that there are possibilities mm-hmm. beyond where they are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Do you want to?
Yeah. I think it started really, really, really heavy. I started up at the Carlton Heritage Centre.
And that was a group you inherited, wasn't it? Because the group had already started.
Yeah. There was a group of maybe 5 people. And it was really, really heavy. And it was primarily all about the pain in the beginning. So through that observation and other training that we done, we developed the second part of the group that Vikki mentioned, and like seeing that the pain's important, and it's where you're at, but it's moving past the pain and showing people that you can look after yourself and you can feel a bit better, and getting people from their heads into their bodies with the resilience tools and the stress management and coming from there and going into the partnership with the Northwest Recovery Services and taking the group in there to a bigger group, and in the bigger group we done the same format, like the pain's important, let's talk about where you're at, but also teaching grounding skills, teaching resilience tools, teaching stress management techniques, teaching coping strategies. And in that group, it is a bigger group, and it's mixed, males and females, and also they've got complex both suicide and alcohol and drug deaths, and it's multiple. One person said about 5, one suicide friend and 3 drug death friends, so it's multiple. So and we've also got the support of the addiction services there. I'm back and going to have meetings with them in regards to the format and not having it in the afternoon, and changing things so that people are really getting taken care of, giving people numbers that they can get outside the groups, because we don't know what support they've got, and all these things. It's quite dynamic, and all the things that you need to take into consideration, and doing regular check-ins and evaluations to what people need, and then we go away and develop it and bring it to respond to the need.
So a really responsive way of doing group work. It's not a program that is then planned and delivered, and it's actually a responsive thing in terms of the needs of the group. I'm thinking as well that I think one of the things when we were looking at the wave after wave training, the suicide awareness training that we were doing, or the death through suicide or being impacted by that, one of the things that struck me was, in terms of the ripples that come out from that it's not just about the family, it's about people way beyond that. So those groups aren't just for somebody necessarily who's lost a loved one through drugs or alcohol or suicide. They're actually for everybody or anybody that's impacted. So I think we talked about the whole idea of the emergency services being impacted, or undertakers, or folks in the workplace. If if a colleague was to suicide or was to die through drugs or alcohol, and that whole idea as well, that there's a stigma that's attached to that kind of bereavement that's not attached to any other kind of bereavement. That's the thing that really floored me to start with, because it had never crossed my mind before, and that's certainly something I think that you picked up as well, hasn't it?
I think what concerned me, but what I thought was the whole process that somebody goes through when the fight, when there's a drug death, or when there's a suicide, and the whole process that they need to go through with the police, with the emergency services, with the being a crime scene, and the whole process. I think there's 7 processes to that, and the impact that's got on top of the impact of a loved one dying, just totally it totally amazed me that that's happening, really.
Yeah, because you're still trying to deal with all of the loss stuff that would be normal loss stuff to deal with if you're grieving. So you're still dealing with all of that, but you've got this added layer on the top of it, which just must for some people be absolutely excruciatingly painful. Not even for some people, for all people. So in terms of that, sounds all like really heavy stuff. So I wonder if you want to talk a wee bit about your own journey with the group then. You two of you have kind of touched on the fact that it's been heavy and how it's impacted you. So what about your own journey as far as that's concerned? Because I know that talking to you, Donna, it was something that you thought, I'm not sure I know what to do with this. I'm not sure how to do this from the start.
I felt a bit out of my depth, if I'm being honest. because of the details that people, I was concerned for my own mental health, and I was concerned for the other person's mental health, and the amount of stuff that they were disclosing, and then that impacting people in the group. So the whole dynamics is not just on me, the whole dynamics on that person, the whole dynamics in the group. I felt a wee bit out of my depth.
But in actual fact, there's been something really beautiful's come out of that, hasn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think, watching people and listening to people very early on, actually, if I have to say, the first couple of months that we've done it, and seeing the progress and hearing the progress that people were talking about when in the check-in part, how much they'd come on with their own mental health and their own journey. That really, at times I was like, this is why I'm doing this, I think it was just a bit of self-doubt, to be honest with you. And watching the people and hearing the people and the difference that it's made to their lives and their families' lives as well, in their recovery, and not just with mental health but with addiction.
And I suppose that's us back at that place again of going in and being able to walk alongside folks in community groups. So it's not going in saying I've got all the answers and I'm going to tell you all the answers. It's actually about being able to go in and be vulnerable in that as well, which you were, going in and saying, look, we're not experts in this, but we're here and we're going to walk with you, and let's learn together what this is going to look like. And that seems to have produced amazing amounts of fruit, doesn't it? So tell us a bit about that. What have the differences been, have you seen for folks?
I think it's important to add as well that it's very much peer support as well, these groups. So what I've certainly witnessed is someone coming in maybe only 2 or 3 months away from that horrific situation, event, and someone else being there who's 2 or 3 years down the line, and watching people offer each other wisdom as well has been beautiful. I personally have been blown away. It sounds so simple, but it's absolutely massive to know that someone is dragging themselves out of bed to just come anywhere, and watch them slowly start to show up with a little bit of makeup on and their hair done. Slowly start to be colour coordinating their clothes again. Slowly starting to tell you, I'm thinking about trying this thing or this new thing, or that has been powerful. Watching people in their process and allowing them their process. And I think as well, we've certainly realised that some of the sort of grieving models, your 5 stages of grief, and people really tune into that stuff, and then they beat themselves because, I thought I was in this 3rd stage and now I'm back to anger, and us realising that's not applicable. That's
it's not
helpful.
Linear.
It's not linear. It's not. It's back and forward and in it and out of it. But always just seeing people trying their best, supporting each other, trusting us. Really, really trusting us. And speaking about their loved one, or their friend or their person. But watching people support each other, I think, has been quite a powerful thing in these groups.
And I suppose that's really what you're both talking about, though, in that, so you're not delivering the group, you're actually just facilitating it, so that as folks are held in that space, people learn that they have something to contribute, that they've actually got something really valuable to bring into that space that helps somebody else, and maybe not necessarily even the people that have come to the group, but actually it helps or supports you folks as well.
I think the lived experience things is really important. Myself, I've had a family member that's been involved in suicide. I've had 2. My kids' fathers have died with addiction. So I've got that lived experience to know in my own healing journey and that as well. Has been really important, and for to take that into the group and say, I know, I've experienced that, and and have that peer lived experience.
And there's an element to this nature of death, which I certainly it helped me in my journey when people were talking about, okay, there's the grief, there's the shock, there's all that stuff, and then a lot of people are talking about being left with an element of guilt as well. And suddenly I realised that that's what my own mum had been going through when my dad died of alcohol abuse. Because I didn't really understand that at the time, I didn't understand that one of the elements of her pain was actually guilt. Why did I not stop him? Why did I not see that coming? Why? All that stuff is like an extra layer of pain and difficulty.
And I suppose in many ways that's why you're so good at what you do in terms of those groups, because we bring our whole self to it, don't we? It's not just, we don't just bring the polished bits of ourselves, we actually bring the bits that go, oh right, okay, so that's what's going on for me as well. And there's a real element of connection in that for folks, isn't there? That it's not a professional coming in saying, and this is what the textbook says, you should be at stage 3 by this time. It's actually about somebody coming and walking alongside with lived experience, which really is what we would want to do here. With anything that we do, we would want to do. And regardless of whether you have the same lived experience as somebody else, it's that ability to be able to get into somebody else's shoes and to be able to empathise and then to encourage folks to be able to work together to support one another. So we've got there's one at the moment in Possil on a Friday. There's one in the Charter in Parkhead at Tollcross on a Friday as well, and they kind of alternate, don't they? So if folks were interested in coming, if folks wanted to hook in with that, they should probably contact you directly to find out which week we're on, because they alternate between the two, whether it's Parkhead or whether it would be Possil. And I think you've got plans to start another one you're thinking about at the minute. Yeah? Are you still thinking about an online one?
Because people that work are not being able to come to the groups, so there's a whole other dynamic of people that are not being able to access the groups during the day.
Yep. And so potentially that'll come on stream in the autumn. I wonder then if folks are watching or listening to this and that's something that they would be interested in, again, if they got in touch, then that might help to determine when it was run in terms of the week time or the weekday or the time in the evening. It's a hard call, isn't it? Because you don't want to run these things too late at night either, because you want people to have some time to decompress after them as well. So in terms of all of that stuff round about bereavement and this particular way of being bereaved, whether it's through suicide or alcohol or drugs, here's the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and change something about our society that would make a huge difference, then what would you change that would make a real difference to those folk accessing those groups, or even the folks who are in communities just now, or even listening to this, who haven't yet had the courage to access those groups? What would you change in society?
I think for me it would be a change in the process when a person is being bereaved. That whole process that people need to go through with the first responders and very a compassionate response.
And I suppose that's about the things that need to be done. So we're not suggesting that first responders aren't compassionate, but in actual fact the processes themselves perhaps don't lend themselves as easily to being supportive as perhaps they could do. Okay, so processes are what we're waving the magic wand over. Anything else, Vikki?
No, awareness, definitely, just awareness.
Raising awareness of the fact that actually this is a really even more difficult way to be bereaved perhaps than other ways of being bereaved.
And this is a lot more common than people think, a lot more common. There's a lot more of this than people realise. And awareness with everyone that people come into contact as well, including us. And
of course, it's a really heavy subject. It's a heavy subject for a podcast, but we would want to be saying to folks out there as well. We will put on the notes for the podcast when it comes out. We'll put the help numbers so that if you've been listening to this at a time when you can't get in touch with us because we're not a crisis service, then you might want to get in touch with the Samaritans or with Breathing Space or whatever. If there's stuff that this has stirred with you that you would want to talk about, then please don't hold on to it. Make that phone call and actually have a conversation about it. If it's something that you'd like to hook in with, if you didn't know that these things existed, that there were such groups across the city, and you want to get in touch with Vikki or Donna, then you can again do that through our website. If you go on to www.healingfortheheart.co.uk, there's a contact form there that will come straight to us, and our admin team will send that the details of that contact form straight on to Vikki or Donna, and one of them will be in touch with you. We know that it's a really difficult conversation, but actually we think that it's a really important conversation to be having. There is support, and we do want to be able to support you, and there are other groups in the city who would also be able to support you. We would also want to finish this podcast the same way that you finish the Compassionate Conversations groups, to say that we totally get how difficult this is and how painful this is, and we want to encourage you actually that it is possible to move forward, because we've already seen that happen. You are testifying to the fact that personally, Donna, it's possible to move forward. Yep. And in actual fact, that's what you're saying about folks that come along to these groups, that it really is possible. There is always hope. And in actual fact, even the most difficult thing can be transformed in order to bring hope and to bring encouragement to somebody else. So thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. And we'll see you next time on the Healing for the Heart podcast.